Let's get down on some Euro dance. Well, Euro dance music, a BPM. That's why I call it now a BPM, although nowadays we call it an EDM, boy. Getting into that dance music back in the late 80s. I remember it so vividly. On the one hand, you had some of the British bands, or the British sounding bands. Well, Information Society, you remember them from 1988. They had sort of a British sound, although they're from here. I think they were from here in the States, but I better double check on that. But you had Depeche Mode, you had New Order. Remember True Faith by New Order, 1987. Then there was Blue Monday in 1988, although there might have been a version that came out a little earlier than that. And on the other hand, had all these girl groups. You had Expose, got one by Expose coming up. Company B, remember Company B with Fascinated, spring of 87, and the scintillating Full Circle, the powerful Full Circle that came after that. And there was, the Cover Girls. I was in love with the Cover Girls. Such a fantastic vocalist, their lead singer. Promise Me in the spring of 88. And there was Because of You in the winter of 87 and 88. But can't talk about that right now. It's Oh Yeah by Yello at number 42. Made its debut on my fantasy playlist. Could not hear it enough on the radio. And this is Alabama now. Although one station, I do remember in 1987, there was a radio station called Kicks 106 that went to a dance format. And I believe they played this one. But if you're watching this video, if you're from, say, Los Angeles or San Francisco or some of the major markets, you probably heard this on the radio. You probably heard this in the dance clubs. It's really more of a beat. It's really more of a... Well, today we'd probably call it house music, but it's probably more of a clubbing record than something retrofitted for radio, a radio-friendly record, but still, it's just one Euro disco turbine churning out a rapid-fire succession of pounding, hammering dance beats that pauses at times. You hear a few sound effects. As a matter of fact, Boris Blank, one of the things that Boris Blank did on this record that I found out that was, I don't know how he did it. Don't ask me. I don't know how he did it. But he created these phonetic sounds with his mouth that was used in the background of this record. Two guys on this group, Yello. It was Dieter Meyer. He did the background vocals. He was the lead vocalist. And Boris Blank on the keyboard. Started out as a two-man act, Yello did in 1979. No, it was a three-man act in 79. Went to two in 1983 from Switzerland. And Stellar, I believe, was their fourth album. Now, Oh Yeah was originally on Stellar, although it's resurfaced after it became more popular, resurfaced on the American version of the album that came after that called 1 Second. Oh boy, this album, this was one heck of a process. And I'll give it to you as succinctly, as accurately as I can. I hope I can give it to you as accurately as I can. This album took over a year, about a year to record. Might have been more than that, 1983 and 84. That's the thing about Oh Yeah. It was recorded back in 1983, 84, originally. Recorded in Switzerland. Then these two guys, Boris Blank and Dieter Meyer, they went to Germany to remix the album. They went to one recording studio in Nuremberg in Germany, and they got a crack German engineer to remix the album, but they were not happy with it. They abruptly left, canceled. After 10 days, they went to another recording studio in Germany to remix it themselves, and they still couldn't get it down. And here's the thing, they were obsessed with perfecting the beat. Let's do it. Let's keep remixing. Let's perfect the beat. Let's perfect this record, this perfection. But they were so obsessed with getting it perfected, they were losing the album. The music was losing its soul. It was losing its humanity. As a matter of fact, they were thinking, well, maybe we're trying to perfect this album. We're so gun-ho. I can't think of the word right now. They were so determined to perfect this album that maybe they really had little to say, and they were compensating. But I hope that made sense right there. Words sometimes slip on me when I do these videos, and then they come to me when I'm not making a video. But that's the way it works. As Frank Sinatra once sang, that's life. Well, anyway, they were not happy. they were not happy with the way this album was coming out. The balances was off. The dynamics was off. It just wasn't working. They went back to Switzerland to remix the album and worked on it again. And there was one song they left out. Well, there's one song they didn't remix, but the album they remixed. And apparently it got to a point where they were satisfied with it, but the album release, the album release to Stellar was delayed by about 4 months. It finally came out in January of 1985. Oh my goodness, before I forget, let's go into this. The instruments they used on this album when they started working on it, they bought 2 new synthesizers to use on this album. One of them was a Yamaha DX7. I believe I got that down right. But as it turned out, they used some of the older equipment like the Fairlight CMI Series 2, which is a digital audio sampler synthesizer workstation. The Fairlight, they used that, often used a lot on that high-tech dance music, and the iconic drum machines used on this record that definitely 80s. Oh, this is so 80s. They used the Lin LM1 drum machine along with the Oberheim DMX drum machine. And as a matter of fact, you remember the rapper DMX from back in the late 90s, early 2000s? He got his name from that drum machine, DMX, because a lot of hip-hop artists, they were using that drum machine too. And this is sparkling, scintillating with drum machines, this record right here. Although some do say that these drum machines would make songs sound more machine-like, taking the humanity out of the equation. And there may be something to that, but boy, it sure sounds good. This is a dance floor picker-upper right here. This is a throbbing dance beat that will just get your legs moving out on the dance floor and just cranking on up, cranking those heels up and dancing to this record. Although I can't dance myself, but love to listen to it on the radio. Now, interestingly enough, Oh Yeah was not the first single release. There were 2 others. But here's what happened. And you're not going to believe what happened. John Hughes, the famed director, John Hughes was a Yello fan. He asked to use Oh Yeah in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And that's when the song started to churn up, gain some momentum here in the States. And it was used again. The song was used again in another movie. It was released in Europe after it was used in a movie called Secret of My Success, which starred Michael J. Fox. And the song came out over here in the States. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I think I've heard that record for about a year, maybe on and off, in 1986 and 1987. Well, anyway, the song went to number 51. Oh Yeah went to number 51 here in the States. Considering that this is more of a clubbing record than a radio-friendly record per se, number 51 on Billboard's Hot 100 is not bad at all. Went to number 1 on the dance club charts here in the States. And I don't know if I want to do this or not because this video's getting long. But let me just very briefly tell you how they came about with the tune Oh Yeah. Boris Blank, he did the music. He sat down with Dieter. Boris Blank would do the music. Dieter would come up with the lyrics. And Dieter would sit there coming up with lyrics. And Boris Blank said, no. That's too many lines. That's too many lyrics. That's too many words. Here's what I envisioned for this record. A sort of a dreadful fat little guy just sitting there chilling saying, oh yeah, oh yeah. And just go with that 5. So Dieter, he goes with oh yeah, but he starts inserting words like beautiful, moon, and he was getting frustrated though because he'd go to Boris Blank and say, okay, is that right? Am I doing this right? Yeah, that's right. But the bottom line is they got it down to their satisfaction, and that was more or less how oh yeah came about. So that was, and one other thing. I don't know if I mentioned this. Did I mention this already? Because I tend to repeat myself on these videos. I've gotten real bad about that. But the background sounds some of the background sounds of the music Boris Blank would do these phonetic things with his mouth. I think I already mentioned that earlier in the video, so I'll just go ahead and drop it. But just in case I didn't, he did these phonetic things with his mouth that you hear in the background of this record. So it was clever. It was very cleverly done. Well, here we go. We're at number 42 on this fantasy playlist. We're bouncing along at Oh Yeah by Yello, number 42 on this fantasy playlist of August 29th, 1987.